Welcome to Tombstone Tales. Have you ever wondered who lay beneath a grave and what their real story was? In the distance is Liverpool's magnificent Anglican cathedral. Walk with us as we reveal the tales from this cemetery. From slave traders to famous forgotten women, and from sea captains to children. Today's episode starts with the latter, and we'll be showing you some of the children buried here, along with their forgotten stories. Our first quick stop is to look over at the Liverpool Oratory, which, in its past life, was the mortuary chapel, holding dead bodies awaiting burial. It now hosts Liverpool University's sculpture collection, with works by people such as Francis Chantry, John Gibson, and more famously Pietro Tannerani, who designed the tomb of Pope Pius VIII. As we make our way down the tunnel, you'll notice graves either side of us. These were placed here to preserve them, as the local council removed the majority of the gravestones. Now looking quite bare, this cemetery actually holds the bodies of over 57,000 people, buried from 1829 to 1936. Stopping here at the first of our graves on today's visit, we find the grave of Mary Platt, who died in January 1880. Mary was just 4 years old when she died. Mary died when she was in Liverpool, staying with her grandparents, and dying from scarlet fever, which was a leading cause of child death in the Victorian times. Mary's family moved back to Manchester not long after burying their daughter and granddaughter, with Mary remaining here. May she rest in peace. Moving on from Mary, and just to the left, we find the grave of William Taylor Barry, slave owner and Postmaster General of the United States, who died in Liverpool on his way through to Spain, where he was taking up the position of ambassador. Just next to William is the grave of Thomas Colby, who, among many other accomplishments, was the director of the Ordnance Survey, as well as being a member of the Royal Astronomical Society. We'll be showing more about these two in future episodes. Just below the grave of Thomas is this highly unusual grave, which you might never give a second glance to ordinarily. A deeper look reveals that there are two children buried here, along with the nurse who was treating them. Sarah Smallman died in 1852, aged 25 years old, and had spent the previous month treating the two children also buried alongside her. Alfred Myrtle, aged 3 years old, and William Myrtle, aged 9. The father of the two children, a Mr. William Myrtle, a very successful Liverpool merchant, paid for Sarah to be interred into the grave alongside her two patients, which gave her family a place to grieve and remember her. Had he not done this, then it was highly likely that Sarah would have been placed into a nearby mass or pauper's grave. May they all rest in peace. Moving on from Sarah and her poor unfortunate patients, we will head on over to the other side of the cemetery, to the first mass grave we have covered. Well, it's our first video, but it's still pretty sad. To our left, overgrown and lonely, are the graves of two of the most prominent slave trading families, the Gores and the Browns. But that's for a future episode. We'll zoom on over to our next grave now. As we turn and head on over to these gravestones that are lined up, we come to a mass grave. That of the local orphanage that was situated locally. Here lies the remains of over 100 children from the Liverpool Orphan Asylum for boys, girls and for infants. Children who had lost both parents were not always allowed into the orphanage, as the orphanage carried strict rules regarding the child's parents being married and the child being baptised. If they were not, it would be off to the workhouse for the poor unfortunate children. May they all rest in peace. Now we go to the 4-year-old girl who was killed by an electric car in November 1903. Hidden behind ivy is the grave of Eliza Reid, who was killed by an electric car while crossing the street with her mother one winter's day. The driver of the car was not charged due to lack of evidence, and being rich also no doubt helped, unfortunately. Now, if time travelling was your first thought, sorry to disappoint, but electric cars existed as early as 1859, before being phased out by the popularity of petrol cars in the 1920s. Poor Eliza was just 4 years old when she died and was buried with her grandparents. May she rest in peace. Making our way to the back of the cemetery, we come across our next grave. Well, we say grave in the loosest possible term, is that of a child known as Little Grace, whose name is etched into the walls of this cemetery. There are a few stories floating around regarding the origins of this grave, so we'll focus on the two most common ones. The first is that Grace's family were said to be poor and unable to afford the cost of burying little Grace in a graveyard. So they hatched a plan. They took her body down to St James's Cemetery and pried loose a slab on one of the vaults and laid her to rest there, etching her name into the sandstone walls to remain forever. In some versions of the story, she is buried there because her father was a rich businessman who wanted nothing to do with the child, and he refused to call the doctor for her when she was on her deathbed. However, he didn't want her death to affect his business deals and partnerships. So, he informed everyone that she had gone to live in the south of England to stay with family. He paid a local convict money to bury her, who was said to be so upset at what he had done that he himself returned and etched her name into the wall. Perhaps one day we will know the true story. May she rest in peace. Our final grave of the day is not actually in the graveyard, but back up there. So let's zoom on up to the top. A quick stop at the cathedral architect's grave, Giles Gilbert Scott, who also happened to design the red phone boxes, now famous the world over. We now head on over to the grave of little Martin, who is buried further along from here. This is the grave of little Martin, who is buried here with his father, Martin Gay Black Oxley, who was a physician in Liverpool's Children's Hospital. He sadly died in 1887 while away in Llandudno, Wales, aged 46. Then, a year later, little Martin also passed away just 4 years old, leaving a grief-stricken mother and younger brother, probably dying of one of the childhood diseases common to that era, such as cholera, dysentery or TB. May they rest in peace. That concludes our first ever cemetery tour. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as we have making it. Please leave a comment, like and subscribe to our channel as we begin our onward journey of sharing the forgotten stories of those buried beneath our feet. The Tombstone Tales.